come up. Good day, my good people. This is the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show where we talk about real life real estate situations, where we bring you real life real estate solutions. I'm your host, Glenn Glasper, affectionately known as Mr. Dollar Out of a Dime. And today I have a very special guest that's going to be joining me, that's going to be talking about some amazing information, especially for real estate agents, but for investors as well. And if you are a woman in real estate, you certainly want to stay tuned to this because there's going to be some information that women will be able to have shared as it relates to real estate investing. So stay tuned in. Our special guest be here with us in just a moment. Our special guest is Miss Lorraine Biato, and she's going to be sharing some phenomenal information today. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this. All right, we are back, and our guest, Miss Lorraine Beato, is joining us here now. Miss Lorraine, how are you today?
I am doing good now that I'm here. How are you?
Listen, I got to tell the folks, I'm always excited to be able to have you on the show and to be able to have you share your wealth of knowledge and experience. It's almost as if people should be paying you to be on this show, but I am glad that you have. I'm glad you had the spirit that I have of giving and sharing knowledge with people, and just showing people a better way of doing what we do in the world of real estate investing. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the folks a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll get right into it.
Okay, no problem. Well, thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure. Glenn and I go back quite a few years at this point. So I'm Lorraine Biato. I'm actually an associate broker, realtor here in Atlanta, as well as an author. I've written a book, a speaker, and a mentor to new agents and real estate agents that want to start investing in real estate. I started life off on the mortgage-backed securities trading floor for Merrill Lynch back in New York. And so I've been tied to real estate for a very long time. I've had my license for 34 years at this point. So a long time. And I've done all sorts of things. We've done fix and flip. We've done cash flow properties. And now we're looking into self-storage development.
Wow. Now, that's something that I didn't know. Now, I knew you had years of experience in real estate, but you said you've had your license for 34 years?
I got licensed May of 1988, where you had to bubble in the circles with the number 2 pencil.
Wow. So we're not gonna tell the people your age, but you're probably 36. So you've had your license since you're 30, so you're 2 years older, right?
Exactly.
Phenomenal. That is amazing. So you mentioned something about Merrill Lynch, and I was reading some information that I had some old information. I'm like, wait a minute, I forgot all about the Merrill Lynch part. We should definitely talk a little bit more about that and how that relates to real estate.
Okay. Yeah. So I started as an intern on the mortgage-backed securities trading floor. And then I worked for them full time when I graduated college, and, kind of did my real estate license just for, as my girlfriend had said, the and giggles. And, it was just something that I did. So I've always loved real estate. Reading The Art of the Deal is kind of what got me, going. I would read it on the train going into Manhattan because I lived in the suburbs. And so I was on the trading floor that traded mortgage-backed securities. So Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, Freddie Mac, they pool the mortgages. Your mortgage, my mortgage. They pool all of the mortgages and then they sell them as securities. So that was kind of my first, step into real estate, kind of on way on the other side, on the corporate side. But Yep.
Wow, wow, wow. And that, that's there's something to be said about that because, and just having some understanding of how mortgages and securities and things like that work, you have a intricate knowledge of how all of that affects how we purchase houses and things like that, even in today's market. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and we'll get into that about how they believe, like people have this idea of how real estate is going now. They said the market's crashing, and I'm like, really? What? What are you saying that I'm not seeing? While we're talking about that, share your thoughts on what you think is happening in the real estate market today.
So go read my Facebook post from yesterday. Um, because I keep telling, and I'm in a lot of Facebook groups. I'm very active. I network a lot in some of these groups, and I keep seeing a lot of agents saying, "Oh, the market's coming down. It's price reduction after price reduction. Things are sitting on the market longer." And my listing that I just listed on Friday got multiple offers above list price. Okay, we're talking house at 775. This isn't, and everything under 400 is still getting multiple offers. My listing before that in July, we had 8 offers. We got 20 grand above list price. So the market is not crashing. Stop listening to the news. Real estate is also local. And I think that is something that is very important that people need to understand. It's local. What is happening in your market, right? I do think that things more like in the city, like in Atlanta or south of the city, they're sitting longer. And maybe they're having some price drops. But if you're I'm in the suburbs, that's not the case. And I still think that, in the back of some people's minds, they're still wanting to get out into the suburbs, because of the pandemic, because of what happened. But no, the sky isn't falling. Trying to get a mortgage now is not easy to do. So we're not going to have another 2008. Now, if I had a crystal ball, I'd charge you $1 million.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. But we still don't have enough inventory. And I think if sellers are realistic, my clients were great. So they listened to everything I told them. And I said, look, we have the same floor plan of a comp that just sold in June or July. So we're in a 90-day window. We priced it 10 grand than what they had priced it at because we had a finished basement. That comp did not. That comp sold above list. And we finally went under contract yesterday with my client. So if you're pricing it right as a seller, and you're not trying to, oh, well, let's go bump it another 20 or 30,000 where it's not realistic.
Right.
No, that's not supported. So our prices are still climbing. They're just not as accelerating as quickly. And things are taking a little bit longer to sell, but I was selling real estate when your average days on market was 6 months.
Right. And that's one of the things that I had the conversation about. Let's talk about the relativity of that. Average days on market there was a time where it was 6 months. We recently had times where it was 6 hours.
Yes.
Right? Or some of them getting offers before you even go to the market. What is relative? What's a relatively, well, now in from what we understand over the last couple of years, relatively reasonable days on market now? What would you say?
I mean, and we've been in some like unprecedented times the last 2 years, right? Things weren't flying off the shelf. You didn't have 40 people coming through an open house.
Right.
But I still think right now, it was funny because when I was working with my sellers that were buyers, they're like, oh, it's been on the market for 14 days. I'm like, it's okay. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the property. And so I think the public's perception and expectations just were not realistic or got so blown up that they're just not realistic now as things shift. I mean, we are headed into fall. Things do slow down because it's fall, kids are in school and all that sort of stuff. But we're trying to get back to a little bit more of a normal market. And I'm sure everybody's heard it. 6 months is a stable market. I think we're Atlanta, last I checked, I think we have like 2.5 months of inventory. I had the neighbors on my listing come through the open house and they're like, are we still in a seller's market? And I said, in my opinion, yes, we are, just based on the number of showings and my personal experience with my clients.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the thing that a lot of people aren't understanding. Like people have gotten, I guess, accustomed is what I'll say, accustomed to things being or flying off the shelves. Like, well, we got 100 offers, and the first day is listed, and things like that. And now they got to wait 14 days. So it's like, oh no, we're not going to be able to sell. um, and I say that because understanding, like, you got not a new buyers come in over the last couple of years,
Yes.
as a result after the pandemic and all that. A lot of new buyers come in. They were able to come in at the lower interest rate. Now interest rates have increased some. Now people are saying, "Oh, the market, people are not going to buy houses because interest rates are going up." What I akin that to is maybe they're not going to buy the $600,000 house,
Right.
but those people that wanted to buy a house still want to buy a house. So maybe they have to go to the $500,000 house. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, people they need to adjust their expectations
Mm-hmm.
and they need to be realistic. Did it take a lot of people? Did the hike in interest rates take a lot of people out of the market? Yes, it did, right? Because they pretty much doubled.
Right, right.
However, interest rates were not going to be sustainable at the 3%. We've never seen interest rates at 3%.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And call me old fashioned, but I am very much of the belief that if you don't have enough money to put some sort of a down payment on a property, you shouldn't be buying a house. Because
Mm-hmm.
if something happens, if something goes wrong, do you have the funds to then go take care of a repair? Can you go fix the AC unit if it went out, right?
Right, right.
And when I bought my first house, when Rui and I bought our first house, I had just turned 25. So I joked that it was my 25th birthday gift. Our interest rate was 8.5%.
Wow.
Back in New York, we bought a house for 220 and we put 20% down. Like
Wow.
literally, when I tell you that was all of my savings for my whole life.
Wow.
And then we had some because Rui had a co-op that he had sold. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we put down at 20%. 20% of is pretty much unheard of,
Right, right.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
nowadays. And so I think it's just setting realistic expectations. I am a huge proponent of home ownership. I hate what the hedge funds have done to a lot of the major metro cities,
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta included. And it's a shame, but when you've got a seller looking at a cash offer, somebody who's putting 3% down, I mean, it's just not going to win, unfortunately. So I think it's very important to set up those expectations, especially if you're a realtor or real estate agent and you're working with a buyer. It's have that consultation and make them understand up front, this is what we're looking at. And okay, maybe we've had to adjust your price from 400 to 300. People who really want to buy a house will still find a way to buy a house.
Mm, definitely, definitely. And I want to give now this is something I want to make sure I don't miss because you shared some great information already, and I want to give the folks a little bit more of an understanding of what you've accomplished and the things that you have going on. So we talked about a little bit of your background, but you wrote a book called Flip the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand one of your passions is to show real estate agents how to become investors. Tell us about Flip the Switch and what is Flip the Switch? What does that mean?
So before the pandemic, I was having it was one conversation in particular that I'd had with a colleague of mine. And, we were on the phone talking. I won't forget, it was July of 2019. And, she's been an agent for a very long time. And we were just talking. She said, Lorraine, I'm really tired. I've been showing buyers for, the last 3-4 months, remember, pre-pandemic, different market. And she said, and I'm tired and my back hurts because she has back issues. And I'm going to have to sell houses until I'm 70.
Wow.
And I was like, wait, what? And she said, I'll be 60 soon because her birthday was in September. And, I said, you're like a top producer. You have well over a 6-figure income in selling houses. What do you mean you can't retire?
Mm,
And she said, I have no retirement.
wow.
And I soaked it all in, and I thought to myself, because this is someone who does, almost triple the amount of business I do, because my business is word of mouth.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and I'm going, okay, I don't have your income. My husband had been laid off several times, so hadn't worked in a while, but yet I had assets that were giving me a monthly income. Okay, maybe not a tremendous amount of monthly income, but I have retirement. Those assets have increased in value. So I've added to my net worth, and that kind of became a passion project. I then had a law firm that asked me, will you come teach your flip the switch workshop? And I said, sure, no problem. I didn't have a workshop in place. I put together an outline. I went and I presented to about 30 real estate agents. And it was so funny because I saw my old team leader from Keller Williams. And, he's like, well, what are you doing here? You must be attending an event. And I said, no, I'm actually the speaker. And at one point, I was in the middle of my presentation and I could hear everybody in the room next door doing their rah-rah. And I found out that, look, Keller Williams is a great company. So understand this is not a bash on KW at all. But I had to stop and I said, they're in there learning how to cold call for prospects. And you're in here learning how to build wealth and how to be able to retire.
Wow.
And when I got done, I had such great feedback that between those two, I had a friend of mine who kept saying, you should write a book, you should write a book, you should write a book. So I took that workshop, I sat down in a week and I wrote my book, and it's on Amazon with like close to 50 5-star reviews, which is amazing.
Wow. And we're actually going to be adding a link to that book so people can pick it up on Amazon. And I have the book and I've read it, and I got to say, completely blown away. I think I got to go back and do my 5-star review on there as well.
Yes, please.
And that's, I think, what oftentimes people miss when, especially real estate agents, like, and I actually talked to a real estate agent the other day who called on a listing that I have. It's something I put on Zillow. I put it on Zillow, and I get real estate agents that call me. And this real estate agent is making offers for her buyer. And the things that she's saying to me are clearly, I clearly understand that she's not well versed in the investing part of real estate as she should be when she's working with investors, right? Because she's saying things to me, she's saying the seller wants me to pay closing costs. I'm like, or the buyer wants me to pay closing costs. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm already selling this at a discount as a wholesale price, and the buyer's asking me to pay closing costs. And she said, well, it's not really a seller's market anymore, so buyers are asking sellers to pay closing costs. And I was like, I don't know about that, because I don't deal with that portion of it. But as an investor, I know that if you're an investor, you're not asking another investor to pay closing costs.
Right. Correct.
Like, this is not how this works. I appreciate, her enthusiasm to even make the, to ask that question or make that offer. But I'm like, that's not really how this works. I'm already selling at a discount, and he wants me to pay closing costs, and he wants me to discount the price even more. Mm-hmm. And she's really suggesting to me that this is the best thing for me to do.
So yes, clearly it's a newbie investor that doesn't understand how things work.
Right.
Working with an agent that doesn't know anything about real estate investing. One of the things that unnerves me is when in the MLS, you'll see calling all investors $20,000 below appraised price. And I'm like, you just don't get it. And they could never understand. And so the other reason for writing the book was because I work with investors. As you know, I got tired of real estate agents saying, you're lowballing my client. And it's because they don't understand all the holding costs that go into like a fix and flip, for example. They don't know, okay, if you're borrowing hard money, you have hard money costs, you have closing costs when you purchase the property. As the buyer, you have your holding costs, your utilities, because your workers got to work. They need the power, the water. And then when they turn around and go put it back on the market to sell, they're paying commissions. And so no one has explained that, in my opinion. That's why I go through it, and just to get them to understand. And so in my book, I actually break down what does 65% or 70% of ARV look like, right? And ballpark, you need $100,000 spread. That's kind of my ballpark number. You need $100,000 spread if you want to make some sort of a profit from what you're buying, what you're all in at, to what you're going to sell at. Of course, it's going to vary, but that's just kind of a rule of thumb.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as a person that who advocates for agents to understand investing, what is and again, I'm not an agent, and I don't play one on TV, but but as a person, well, as a broker, because you're a broker, I want to make sure we specify that there's a difference between a broker and an agent. We'll explain that to the people that don't understand. But as a broker who does this, who's done real estate investing, what are some of the things that you would want to point out to the real estate agent, either new or experienced, that doesn't have real estate investing experience? What are some of the things that you should think that they should primarily pay attention to?
So my so yes, shameless plug. Pick up my book. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I go and I just updated it. So my new book, I'm tweaking. I need a new cover. Should be coming out hopefully the end of October.
Okay.
I have actual case studies in there. Now, understand they're more geared to how I acquired properties because I was an agent, where putting a sign in the yard did not solve the problem for the seller.
Wow.
But I think it's important to understand the investor's mindset, right? And I cover all of this in my book. That's why I just got tired of posting it in forums. I'm like, look, just go pick up my book for $13, okay?
Yes, I mean.
Um, right? It's getting them to understand, and I think it's important that they get with an investor, and instead of trying to shove properties down an investor's throat, because there's people that they're like, well, what about this? What about that?
Mm-hmm.
Go learn what is the investor's criteria. Go talk to some investors. Look, they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go to a RIA. That's a good place to start. Or, go to some of these other masterminds that are out there and really get to know. What transitioned me into investing was we had attended one of the big TV guru boot camps
Mm-hmm.
back in 2013. I had been an agent for a long time. And once I got in that room, and I had already been buying at the steps with a friend of mine. We were buying at the auction in Gwinnett at the courthouse steps. Once I got in there and got surrounded by seasoned investors, new investors, but just really got entrenched with that, and then started working with investors here in Atlanta. My niche was out of state investors. I got to really understand, what do they look at? What are they, the most important thing is the RV, understanding what is the max that they can offer in order for a deal to work, right? I learned about hard money. I didn't know what hard money was in 2013. Um, and just get out there, get involved, learn as much as you can. It's not HGTV. Okay. It kills me when you see some of these things that they're like, oh, the profit was $90,000. Where's your commissions? Where's your holding costs? Where's all of that? That's not taken into account. Okay. It's funny because there's a show that was done here, and a couple of years ago when they aired their first episode, I went on my rant because I'm like, look, here's the links to Zillow. Here's what they actually paid for it. And yes, it went under contract. Oh, by the way, it never sold. And it was withdrawn 4 days before the show aired. And they
Wow.
didn't include 14 months worth of holding costs with hard money in that number.
Wow.
So, my goal is to make people realize, look, this is reality TV, and reality, like real life real estate investing,
Exactly.
different animal. Can you make money? Absolutely. Can you buy houses with no money down? 100%. I
Yeah.
bought 2 cash flow properties during the pandemic with no money out of my pocket. Zero. And it's an education process. I think that's number one.
Wow. Wow. So it's absolutely, I'm blown away, right? Because I think about, and that's how, and I'll be honest, that's how real life real estate investing was born. Seeing all of these TV shows, and people get their ideas because it's on TV. Like, it's reality TV, but is it reality? And they get their ideas a lot of times when they look at these shows and they see the numbers, and people get excited, like, yeah, I can make all this money in real estate, which you can. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of the different things that go missing in the information that's presented. You said they don't have the holding costs, they don't have the agents fees, they don't have the utility costs, like all of the things that are associated with purchasing these properties and fixing them up and selling them. There are several different factors, I believe, that go missing. And the people see, I can make $50,000. And also a thing that's missing is the Uncle Sam tax.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Right. So automatically that 50,000 turns into 25,000. Right. And then you have to look at the time aspect of it. If you work 6 months for $25,000, have you really done enough due diligence to make sure that the deal that you're doing is going to make you enough money for it to make sense? Because if you make $25,000 in 6 months, then you probably should get a job at someplace else. um, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, and that's not bad, right? For some people, 2 deals, if they can do 2 deals on the side and add to their income, that's not a bad payday at the end of the day either.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. And it all again, like it all depends on what's being put into it and the time aspect of it.
Right.
The overall picture is what people should really be paying attention to. Real estate is going to always be lucrative, in my opinion. I believe it's definitely a lucrative business. However, you have to weigh what's being put into it and what you're getting out of it for it to make sense, right? And as you mentioned, it's the education aspect of it. Which leads me to my next question. We talked about flip the switch. We talked about you having a passion for helping real estate agents to learn investing. I want to come back a little bit after, in a little bit to talk about an actual deal that you've done and kind of break it down a little bit so people can understand how that process works.
Mm-hmm.
But tell me about Wired. Wired is something, I got to say, I saw the information. I got excited, and I'm not even a woman. But
Okay. We're not exclusive.
tell me about Wired and what that is.
Yeah, so back in September of 2019, before the pandemic, I had founded the East Coast of another women's investing chapter here in Atlanta that was going really, really well. Mm-hmm. Pandemic hit, everything shut down. They went virtual. They run all their stuff on Pacific time or Eastern. Times weren't working. My ladies weren't hopping on. And then, about a year and a half ago, we decided, look, you don't need chapter leaders. Chapter leaders were basically dissolved. Mm-hmm. In the last couple of months, over the summer, I've had a couple of women from that group who had friends that have invested here in Atlanta. Here's the other thing. Don't do your first deal out of state, especially clear across the country, that got into trouble. And so they reached out to me and they're like, okay, can you help so-and-so? And I said, look, I'll do what I can. And then they said, okay, well, then they're going to join. Ren was the name of the group. And I said, well, it's not defunct, but there is no Atlanta chapter anymore. Mm-hmm. So about a month ago at this point, I was thinking, maybe I should pick this up. Maybe I should start my own group. And I wanted something, I was trying to find a name that nobody else had, right? And it just came through. Like I started with Wire, and then literally it was like 3:00 in the morning, and I woke up and I'm like, Wired. Women investing in real estate dominate, right? Because I started women in real estate, and I'm like, that kind of gives a connotation that it's just for realtors or real estate agents. Mm-hmm. And so I came up with the name. I got on Fiverr. I had an image of a logo. They did my logo. I put it on Meetup. Within like an hour, I had 25 women that had signed up I just put it on Meetup. I created the group. And we had our first meeting last week. We had about 37 people RSVP. We had about 15 that showed up. And it was amazing. It was amazing. That is my other passion. We had women from all sorts of background. One is opening a bakery and a restaurant. Another one is a cosmetologist. And she said something very interesting. I got to get out from behind that chair in the next 10 years.
Wow.
Right. So it's not just, and then we had some realtors. We had a loan officer. We had someone who does syndication. We had someone who does luxury Airbnbs. And I didn't know, I knew 2 of the women that showed up because they were in my former brokerage with me. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know any of these women. And then the feedback I got, they're like, this is great. I did an intake form. One woman was signing in and she said, please tell me you're not going to sell me anything. And I said, excuse me? She said, just please tell me I didn't drive over here and you're going to sell me something. And I said, I don't follow. And she said, I attended an event about a week ago. I drove an hour, went to the event, a women's event. It was good. Then at the end, I got, basically gobsmacked with, come spend $5,000. And so I said, no, I'm not going to sell you anything. I said, maybe a membership in the future. I said, but this is a group for women, and it's not just women. Men are welcome, unlike the other group where it had to be all females. Where we can come and collaborate and support each other. And one of the lady that said, "Please don't tell me something," got up. We went around the table. We introduced ourselves, kind of what we do. Should be a licensed GC in December.
Mm. Wow.
She got up and literally did the happy dance and said, "I have found my tribe
Wow.
because I am
Wow.
having a really hard time talking to subcontractors because I'm a woman."
Mm.
And so we just encounter these other challenges that men don't necessarily encounter.
Mm.
And so yeah, so we've got our next meeting coming up in October. I've got a hard money lender coming in to talk about funding, and then really excited for November. I have a tax attorney and CPA that is really, really well known. I followed him for a couple of years to teach on, why you should set up your LLC. What are the benefits? How many LLCs should you have? What are your tax implications? He's amazing. I've been following him for a couple of years. So he confirmed yesterday that he will come speak to us remotely for November.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. So you said remotely. So is it going to be an in-person event or is it a virtual event?
So we meet in person. But for November, I'm going to do it virtually. Advana IRA has been kind enough to say that I could use their space. So for that particular one, we're going to meet in a conference space because that's more central. My office isn't coming. It's not really conducive to most people. And yeah, so I'm going to bring him in remotely, and it's, whoever wants to come, it's open to anybody.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. We have Miss Vanita says that sounds great. All right. So Miss Vanita, make sure you'll be connecting with Lorraine and attending that event. So you said now you mentioned education, and you mentioned the person that said, "Don't sell me anything." Okay, I get it. But there was something else that I wanted to talk about because you're looking at putting together a mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Can
That's
you tell
correct.
us a little bit more about that and what are all the things that are involved in that?
So I have one of the things that I did almost a year ago was in December was there was this high level mastermind that I had wanted to attend. It's by an investor, and I wanted to go in 2020, couldn't do it. And I'm gonna be honest, I've always been against spending a lot of money on attending a mastermind. 100%. I'm like, you don't need to go spend that kind of money to go to an event to go learn this information.
Mhm.
And what I did in that year from when I wanted to go was I started tracking the people that had attended this guy's mastermind.
Mm.
And I saw what they were doing. And so finally I went last December. Rui and I went last December to Destin. And we went to Chris Root's mastermind. He's a mobile home guy. And I met people I would have never met had I not have paid to be in the room.
Mm. Wow. Okay.
When you get to the point that you can drop a couple of grand to attend a mastermind, the level of people that are attending are completely different. Your RIAs are great to start, right? Dip your toe in the water, get to know as much as you can. But when you want to level up your game and you want to move into the next level where you have access to people in the room that have private capital, that have other experiences. I joked with Rui that we were the poor ones in the room.
Mm.
It was a mindset shift, a huge mindset shift for me. So I would say that in the past, not quite a year, it'll be a year in December, I have attended, I just came back from Vegas. So we'll call it 3 high-level masterminds. I've expanded my network across the country. I've met amazing people. I now have access to private capital if I need private capital. And one of the things that Rui and I thought when we sat at that event, self-storage was something that we've been interested in for probably about 2 or 3 years.
Mm.
And the guy that got up there and spoke on self-storage, talked about building Class A facilities. And Rui and I just sat there and were like, we're never going to be able to do that, right? We don't have $10 million to go do something like this.
Right. Right.
He then created a mastermind group that is actually it's a monthly subscription. And now we are looking at partnering to develop Class A self-storage facilities.
Wow. Wow.
been in this since probably about February. But that is now my retirement plan. That has totally changed the game for me, for us. We haven't done a fix and flip in 2.5, almost 3 years,
Right.
because it's just so hard. And I have some great wholesaler friends, but the deals don't make any sense. You have supply chain issues, you have contractor issues, and the piece of the pie is getting smaller and smaller. And
Mm-hmm.
self storage is pretty much recession proof. It has been on an upward trend for the last 40 years. And it's an asset class not very many people are in. Everybody went from fix and flip to cash flow to multifamily. And, multifamily scares me. I
Mm.
did just do Bratz's course last week. But like I said, self storage is something I've always had an interest in. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And yeah, my network is just grown tremendously. And I've mentioned it, and they're all guys. I do have someone else that I know, but they happen to all be guys. That's the other thing.
Mm.
But they've agreed to come speak for me. They said, if you put on an event in Atlanta, we will come to Atlanta and present on your behalf. So it's something I'm planning for March or April of next year. It won't be cheap, but you need to understand these guys are charging people 25 grand a year, to coach them one-on-one, 40 grand a year to coach them one-on-one. So, it's something I'm planning. I hope it takes off, that it will go well. It will be a limited number of people. That's kind of their model. I'm modeling after what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love is, it's a small, intimate group, 20, 30 people. We meet it at an Airbnb or a house or whatever, where we're all together. You're there with the speakers. You have lunch with the speakers. It's not like they've gone behind some curtain and you can't talk to them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you really create that synergy and that network.
True stuff. True stuff. Now, I want to make sure we emphasize the importance of masterminds. Like anybody that's ever read the book, if you haven't, please read it. The book Think and Grow Rich, where Napoleon Hill talks about the importance of masterminds. Now, I'll be honest, I've been masterminding with people for quite some time. But when you talk about the things that you're talking about, as far as, and there are levels to this. We talk
Yeah.
about a high level mastermind, right? Like we can hang out at a RIA, like you said, that's maybe $100, a couple $100. And you're going to have a lot of the people in the room that are trying to figure things out, right? And that's okay. But when you're looking at leveling up your business and doing something on a completely different level, you want to be in the room with people that are doing things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
A majority of them that are doing things that you want to do. And those rooms do require a significant investment, right? I'm a part of a mastermind, and it's well into the five figures, right? So it's something that is necessary for those of us that are doing things on a different level and that are looking to go to the next level. So so for Wired, it may not be an investment, but for the mastermind that you're going to create, there will be an investment. Let's make sure that's understood. And Brandon Burke, we want to make sure we address Brandon Burke's question. Brandon Burke asked if men are welcome to Wired. I believe that's what he's asking about. Men being welcome to Wired.
Yes, men are welcome to Wired.
Okay. And the mastermind, of course, I'm sure that'll be universal of sorts. And so the whole mastermind thing, I want to make sure we talk about that just a little bit. That is very important. Like if you're a beginner, some sort of mastermind you still want to look at,
Yeah.
right? But if you're even involved and you're investing, you're doing something, you will definitely want to be a part of a mastermind that will take you to another level. So sign me up for the mastermind, Lorraine. I'll certainly be a part of that as well.
Well, awesome. I'm excited, and yeah, we'll be covering all sorts of different topics. And it's, you got to pay to play, and I never believed that. And like I said, it's taken me all these years. I'm not that old, but I'm not that young. So it's to really, because even and Ruby was like, he's like, are you crazy? He's like, I thought you wanted kitchen cabinets in the lake house. I'm like, I do. Right. But I think this will just get us where we want to go faster. And so did I make some personal sacrifices and not spend the money on other things to be able to go? 100%.
Yes.
Will I do it again? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Because if you figure it this way, if you pay for the kitchen cabinets in the lake house, those are investments. but the return on investment can't be compared to. I'm looking at Rui's comment.
Oh, is he on? Okay.
The return on investment for investing in something that will educate you and grow you to the next level, the return on that investment is infinite, right? So being part of that mastermind will help you generate the cash flow or the cash to invest in the cabinets in the lake house. Um, Rui says, trust me, I'm not crazy." No, listen, it makes sense. It makes sense. And for some time, like I remember a time, and I always go back to the story. I remember a time a gentleman said to me, "If you meet me for lunch and bring a check for $5,000, I'll teach you the business of real estate." And at the time, I was doing really well. Like this was pre crash, like maybe 2005 or 2006. And I thought to myself, why do I need you? I'm already making, quite a bit of money in real estate. What do I need to pay $5,000 for? Then when the crash happened, and my knowledge for what to do in that situation was limited or none, so I didn't know what to do, right? I had a lot of money, but I didn't know what to do. And had I made that investment of $5,000 at that time, I could have easily sailed on through that situation, the crash, and not been worried about what would have happened. So, it's things like that hindsight being 2020, of course, you make the investment on the front end so you get the return on investment that is infinite. It's significantly significant and as well as infinite, because had I got the knowledge then, I would still have that knowledge today to be able to apply, to things that I'm doing. But I know better now.
Well, it's like somebody said, you're paying to compress time,
Wow.
which I thought was a great, and I thought that was a great analogy.
Wow.
You're paying to compress time. You're
Wow.
paying to learn what may have taken them a year to learn,
Oh,
or you're learning from their mistakes. Like, this is what happened. This is what I did. And you don't have to go through the agony of losing 20 grand on a flip, right? Or
right.
whatever. And I thought that was a great analogy. You're paying to compress time and get information and solutions faster than if you had to go through it on your own.
And if I can't believe that there is a situation where people don't understand how that makes sense, right? And I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that. First of all, I'll use that. First time I'll give you credit. I don't know where you got it from, but I'll give you credit. The second time is going to be mine. Because it makes sense. I mean, when you look at someone like yourself who's been a licensed agent for 34 years, right? I'm going to emphasize that 34 years again. For that amount of time, it makes sense. And then you've also been an investor, and now you're a broker, and now you're an author and a speaker. So
And I was an appraiser.
and an appraiser. Wow.
I've done it all.
Right. So I mean, and for the people that understand the value of being an appraiser, knowing the value of properties, so all of that, it would make sense for someone to make the investment to work with you because they're compressing the time, as you mentioned, your 34 years of experience to their probably 0 to however many years now being compressed into an opportunity for them to start right out the gate and make well over whatever amount in the first 6 months to a year, right? As opposed to waiting that 34 years that you had to go through and having to figure things out along the way, right? So it makes sense to make the investment in someone like yourself, whether it be a mastermind or whether it be the flip the switch course. I'm going to speak that out, put that out there.
I know. I've had people ask for it. It's coming at some point.
I'm just going to put that out there. The flip the switch course that's coming real soon. It makes sense for people to make the investment in you to help them get over that hump. So I wanted to go back to talk about the investing experience. So I want to ask, what are you currently working on now? And what are you doing in investing right now? You mentioned earlier, and if you don't mind giving us a little bit of information about. You said you bought a couple properties over the pandemic with no money out of your pocket. Tell us how that worked, and tell us what you're currently working on.
Yeah, so that the two case studies of the two pandemic properties are coming out in my new version of the book.
Mhm.
And this is why it's so important for real estate agents to stop thinking about just putting a sign in the yard for a seller and just thinking inside that box.
Mhm.
I had someone that I met at a party probably, I don't know, 6 years ago at this point. It's been several years. Like I forget the pandemic in the middle is 2 years. And she had come to me with two properties that she wanted to sell. And I looked at them. One was in Smyrna, one was in Jonesboro. Looked at them, went through them, and I said, look, I would love to sell them for you, but you're upside down.
Mhm.
Properties both were worth about 70,000, and the mortgages on them were 90,000.
Mhm.
I had not really stayed in touch with her. We connected on Facebook. We stayed Facebook friends. We would comment on each other's stuff. And in January of 2020, she called me. I was pulling into Chili's to go have a lunch appointment. And she said, do you remember the property that I had in Smyrna? And I said, yes. She said, well, the neighbor just sold his and put lipstick on a pig and sold it for 121,000. And
Mhm.
I said, okay, great. I said, I'm pulling into an appointment. Let me run some numbers. Let me check when I get back home and I'll get back to you. So I did. And I saw that the townhome, they're attached townhomes. It was more than lipstick on a pig. And I said, look, that's new carpet. That's a new kitchen. That's a new bathroom. That's probably easily 20 grand. That's not just paint and carpet.
Mhm.
I said, okay, so maybe we can list at 110 as opposed to 121 where this guy was. And she had heard me talk about subject to, and she said, I want to do that thing that you mentioned before.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I had told her, I said, well, maybe Marie and I will consider buying it. So I made an appointment, went out to the house, to the townhome, walked through it. She asked me, what did I think? And I said, well, it needs some work. It was original appliances, original cabinets from the 70s. And Rui's in the crawl space, checking everything out for me.
Right.
So I'm coming down the steps. I'll never forget, I'm coming down the steps, and she said, "Well, what were you thinking?" And I said, "I don't know. Let me see what Marie has to say." But in my head, I had a number of giving her $3,500. That was my number in my head.
Mhm.
And she just kind of looked at me and she's like, "What are you thinking?" And I said, "Well, why? What are you thinking?" And she's like, "No, I want to pay you to
Mhm.
take over the townhouse." And I just looked at her and I said, what's going on? Right. I said, I went over some things that I knew about her, son, grandchild, how old he was, all that stuff. And she just looked at me and she said, how do you remember all of that with everything that you have going on? And I think I'm a pretty good listener. Like I really listen to people. I think that's one of my strengths.
Wow.
And so we went outside and, she told me what she wanted to pay me to take it over. And I said, I can't do that. And she said, why not? After everything you've helped me with. And in my head, I'm going, I really haven't done all that much, except tell you 4 years ago, you have a cash flowing property, you don't have a problem tenant, keep it.
Right.
So we did. So we agreed on half of what she offered, and she paid the closing costs. So I got a cash flowing property with a long term tenant. Friday the 13th, March, right before the pandemic, like the world shuts down. And I'm going, oh God. I hope we made I hope we made the right decision. Um, Still have that property. Tenant always paid the rent. We upped the rent on her. Value of the property has doubled.
Wow. Wow.
And we're about to, our tenant finally is going to move out. We're going to renovate it and then up the rent even more. And so that was one. And that was because I had a listing conversation with her about her property 4 years prior and just told her the truth. Yes, I can sell it, but you're bringing all the commission to the table. And then March of last year, I bought her other property and we did the same thing. And not only that, people need to understand, especially real estate agents, we're horrible at this. Stop trying to make decisions for other people. We got on a Zoom. I brought in two partners. We did the same thing. I purchased it subject to. However, the HVAC had been taken, part of the copper plumbing had been taken, and there was something wrong with the electrical.
Wow.
She put in a brand new HVAC system. She replaced the missing plumbing and fixed the electrical. Not only that, offered to make 6 months worth of mortgage payments while I rehab the property. Offered. I didn't ask for it. I didn't offered it. And
Wow.
so we rehabbed it in 6 weeks. Cash flowed really, really well. And we just sold it 3 weeks ago for 100 grand more than we paid for it.
Wow.
Cashed out, and we had cashed out it cost us 17 grand to rehab. So, so if you take that out, we made about 90 grand.
Wow. Wow. And I want to make sure people get this. Like on the front end, you got paid to take these properties, right?
One of them. Yeah. Well, yeah. And the other one, technically, in a way, yes, because I didn't have to pay the mortgage for 6 months.
So, and those are the pieces of the puzzle. Like these are things that people are not familiar with. From a investment standpoint, people think, okay, I gotta have cash, I gotta have credit, I gotta do these things. Which, if you don't have the knowledge, it's best to have the cash and the credit, right?
Right.
Because you can make some mistakes if you have cash and credit and probably still make a little bit of profit. But there are times where people look at doing the business with no cash and no credit and no knowledge. How do they pull off that type of deal without any of that?
I don't think you can.
Right.
Unless you partner with somebody who does. But if you don't have any of that, what are you gonna? Why would someone partner with you? What do you bring to the table?
Absolutely.
Right. And I think that's the other piece. You know, all of these people want all of this stuff, but it's like, what do you bring to the table? I cannot tell you how many times people have hit me up and asked me, I need your help on this, or can you help me figure this out, or can I pick your brain? I cannot tell you how many times I have done that. And when I have turned around and asked that person to help me with something minor, because I'm not to say this to sound the wrong way, I was the one with the knowledge and I need something minor. Crickets.
Right.
Crickets. And so, I make a joke sometimes now when someone's like, I want to pick your brain. Great. Send me your PayPal account. I'll send you an invoice. When you pay the invoice, you can pick my brain.
You can pick my brain until the invoice payment runs out.
Right? Because I think that's what people forget. You and I have both paid a lot of money,
yes,
and have spent a lot of time to learn what we know.
Yes.
And have I lost money? Hell yeah. We lost 70 grand on a deal out in San Antonio, Texas. Wow. Do I now know what not to do? Sure. You want to stop from losing 70 grand and you want to pick my brain, there's going to be a cost.
Right. And that's the thing that I really want people to get. When you talk about sending an invoice and having people pay to learn from you, these are the areas where people look at, I've had people ask questions, well, why does it cost so much? Or why should I pay that? And I think a lot of times people miss that even though we've been around for some time, we still invest in our education, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking about high level masterminds, and we're talking about investing 5+ figures for masterminds. How is it that you think that I'm going to pay this amount of money, having 20+, 30+ years of experience? I'm still investing in my knowledge and education. And then you come in with no experience and no knowledge, and you can come in and not have to invest anything. That's just not how it works.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to mention, all of your accolades and all of your experience, people should understand that they're getting that when they work with you, right? The Flip the Switch book, yeah, you can go ahead and get that for $13.99. You can pick that book backwards and forward all you want, right? I believe the book probably should be $97.99 at least.
Let me go to Amazon and up the price. Okay, you heard it from Glenn, so go blame Glenn.
I believe the price should be increased. But I think oftentimes people miss, and this is something I always beat this horse to death. People miss cost versus value, right? Yeah. They look at, okay, the book is $13.99. Right. But some people will buy that book and it'll sit on the shelf, right? Because they only paid $13.99 for it. There's no real sacrifice there, right? But when you pay $5,000 or you pay $10,000, the hope is, because I've seen people pay that and not really do anything there either. But the hope is when you invest that type of money, you would look to get more out of it in terms of value rather than looking at the cost of it, right? Because you and I know what we know, and that comes from years of experience. And to compress time, it's mine now. It's mine now, by the way. And to compress time for someone else, to give them to the type of knowledge and experience that we have in a shorter amount of time, I personally believe that's invaluable, right?
Yeah.
So to even for me, I know it will be a challenge for you as well to try and figure out the cost that we should associate with the value of what someone is going to get from us. I believe it's a challenge, right? Because some people would say 5,000 is too much, but I say if you invest 5,000, you learn how to make 500,000. Is it really too much? You know.
And exactly, watch your words. And so I've been very cognizant about that investment. And so I have changed my vocabulary. I don't ask people how much things cost anymore.
Absolutely.
I ask them what is the investment, because at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
it's an investment in me
Yes.
and my knowledge and how to get to my goals that I have. And so it's a mindset thing. So when I tell you my mindset has changed, trust me, 100%.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. And those are the things that I often say that I always ask what the investment is, and then, but some people they're not where we are yet, so
Right, of course.
they're still looking at cost, and we have to help them understand value, right? And here's another thing. We're going to increase your value a whole lot more, right? I think the price. They say yesterday's price is not today's price. Your price is about to go up even more.
Inflation.
Right. So that's the thing. Like people will say, okay, gas used to be $1.50. Now it's $3 or $4. People will still pay for gas because of the value that they get from it. Right. So what is the investment? Well, let me not ask for a number, but I want to look at what you're doing now also in terms of investment, because we were going to get there, because you're doing some stuff even internationally, right? So you're doing stuff in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
So I have a lot of passion projects, right? And so for those of you, I hate the book, The One Thing. I tried to read it, I couldn't read it because I cannot do just one thing.
Yeah. The book I hate is Eat That Frog. I love it, but I hate it.
I didn't read that one. I have it, but I never read it. And so a couple of years ago, I don't know if you recall, it's been 5 years at this point in time. I renovated my grandparents' house in Portugal.
Mm.
And at that point in time, the 10 years of probate, lots of red tape. So understand this wasn't easy, but we got it done. And the attorney at that point in time said to me, "Oh my gosh, look at what you did. Why don't you do this for other immigrant children?" I am first generation American. So there are a lot of us here in the States and abroad that have inherited properties because, back then you had, grandma's house and then, everybody just stayed in the same house,
Mm-hmm.
right? Pretty much. Houses stayed in families for generations. Ree and I still own land that belonged to his grandfather.
Wow.
And so it's just stuff that just gets passed down and passed down and passed down because, right, how much land you had, that was your wealth or that was your family's legacy. And in essence, I took a property that was falling apart. I had never been in the downstairs. It's a two-family villa. And after I went through probate, it was falling apart. It was worth about 250, we'll just call it dollars, about $250,000. And we renovated it. And I remember my mom telling me about the downstairs. I'd never been in the downstairs apartment or suite, whatever. And we're trying to renovate. I'm like, "Mom, I never saw it. Like, I played in the front yard as a child, but I'd never been inside because it was the same tenant for 60 years.
Wow.
Okay. They're not landlord friendly. So based on pictures, I'm sending my cousin, paint samples in the mail. I'm going, okay, I want the bathroom this color. I want the bedrooms this color. I'm going on Google Portugal to find tile for the bathroom floor and the kitchen and all that. Did everything remotely. So when we finally went 5 years ago, can't believe it's been that long, the attorney said to me, "Look at what you did," because the property is now worth ballpark 600,000 euros. So it's worth 250. We put in about 50 grand and double the value. And Portugal has been on fire. Lots of people moving to Portugal right now. And I started thinking, I think that's a great idea. I don't know how to go about it. I don't have a team in place. I don't know what that looks like. Other than you, I have no contacts. I moved over to EXP a year and a half ago. Wasn't looking to move, had no intention on moving, had people try to recruit me for years, and I always said no. And then someone I highly respect, talked to me, showed me kind of all of the benefits and what I could do and how I could grow. And I said to him, okay, my key is I want to go international. And I saw that EXP had just launched in Portugal last year. So I started posting it on Facebook here and there. Hey, if you've got land in Portugal or you have property in Portugal, you don't know what to do with it, let me know. And a childhood friend reached out and said, hey, Lorraine, I see that you're doing work in Portugal. Can you help us? Same scenario. Has inherited properties that were her dad's, and they now need to liquidate, and they're not sure how to liquidate because they need the money for mom's care back here in the States. And so now I have the whole team in place. I got connected with the head of EXP Portugal. So I've got like the head honcho that I'm working with. We have the attorneys in place. We have the CPAs in place. So I now have my team in place, and I'm hoping to close that property here by the end of the month. So that's something. At the end of the day, I love helping people. That's just what I do. And so, that'll be my first one. And I've talked to the head of EXP. We've talked about, as he put it, doing a road show in the United States and maybe going to the cities that have larger concentrations of Portuguese population, like New York, New Jersey. There's a big community in Florida. And he's like, look, we'll come in and we'll hit 3 cities and let's see who else we can't help.
Wow. So that's the next thing I wanted to ask about. What is EXP? Like people are saying, people are probably going to ask, now you've been able to go to Portugal and you're going to do some international stuff. What is EXP, and how is being a part of EXP making that possible for you?
So EXP is a brokerage, right? It's like your Keller Williams. I've been at Keller Williams for 9.5 years. I was at Palmer House for just over 9 years before transitioning. Your Harry Norman, your Remax. It's a brokerage firm. The difference between EXP is that it's completely cloud-based. So there are no physical. I have my own office space, but everything is cloud-based. So they don't have any brick and mortars. And for me, I spent 8 weeks doing my due diligence on EXP. For me, the ability to do business internationally, which when I met with Kevin Palmer, I told him, and I had always said, I will never leave. It's an amazing company. I loved it, except to go do business internationally. And because everything is cloud-based, it is so easy for me to access everyone. I have a referral out to somebody who wants to buy a second home in Colombia. I have a referral out to Puerto Rico for someone else looking for a second home. And so the ability there really are no borders. And for me, it was mind-blowing. I actually have a team in Brazil. I have a team of 2 people in Brazil. When I joined EXP, I reached back out to, his name was Maverick, because that was my caveat. I will switch brokerages. I will stop paying a flat fee and go pay 20%, because the opportunities are tremendous. And I brought on a team in Brazil just as EXP in Brazil launched. So I'm also connected to the head of EXP Brazil. And just that ability to go into the world, right? Everything's virtual. I have something called the world, to just be able to go in there and connect with people from across the country or different countries. The ability to be able to do commercial and be part of their commercial group, it's just very seamless. And it's not for everybody, but it's been great for me.
Great stuff. So you have the ability to be able to expand your little corner of the world all across the world by being a part of this brokerage. Amazing stuff. And that's where your value has just doubled again. Amazing stuff. So let's recap just a little, right? Broker, author, speaker. We put the link in the comments for Flip the Switch, so make sure you go pick that book up. Today it's $13.99. I think the price is going to go up tomorrow.
It's $12.99, so I'll up it tomorrow.
So you got 24 hours to get it for the discount price of $12.99 or $13.99 today. So the price is going to go up tomorrow for you understanding how valuable she is and what she has to offer. So you have a passion for helping agents become investors, right? You also help individuals that want to become investors. You help them become investors as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I haven't done it in a while, but yeah, I've done some one-on-one mentoring.
Okay, good. So all of this backed by your 34 years of experience as a real estate agent, now broker, now investor, now author. I say that the ticket price starts at $20,000 now. And not only that, you're going to be creating a mastermind. You have Wired that's happening now, and the next event for Wired is when again? October. What's the date?
The 12th, I think. The second Wednesday of October. And if anybody just wants to go over to meetup.com and find Wired, I'll give you the exact date. I'm pretty sure it's the 12th. Yes, the 12th, October 12th, 11:30 at Taco Mac by Perimeter Mall.
Okay. All right. One of our shows is going to be at Wired during that time because we come on at 12 o'clock. So we're gonna do a show at Wired talking about what's going on.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yes. I'm just putting it out in the universe, for when that happens. So check out Wired. Tell us the acronym for Wired again.
So Women Investing in Real Estate Dominate.
Got it. Great stuff. And men are invited to come to Wired as well.
Yes.
So check out that event coming up October 12th. And now it's on Meetup. Is there some other way they can register outside of Meetup or no?
So right now I'm doing everything on Meetup because I'm trying to get to the point to hire a VA because I do everything myself.
Okay.
Meetup is the easiest for right now. There's no cost to join on Meetup. You just go be a part of the group because I send all the communication through there. There is no, I didn't want to prevent people from joining the group. So there is no, you must input your email address. And so the only way for me to communicate with everybody in the group right now, that may change in the future, is through Meetup because I can just email all of the members.
Okay.
So that's the best place to go for right now.
Okay. All right. So go over to Meetup, look up Wired, get connected, RSVP for you all coming out to the event on the 12th. And also, we mentioned picking up the book. The mastermind will be coming soon. So for those of you that don't want to make the investment in yourself, this might not be for you. But I'll let you tell the folks, is there anything that you want to share with the audience before we jump off?
No, I think we've covered everything, or we've covered the only thing I will say is the book is short. Okay, so don't freak out. It's like 80 some odd pages. So it's a quick read. You can pick it up and read it in an afternoon. And truly, I tell you how I bought my lake house. I tell you how I got one of the rentals. I tell you if you've got kids going to college, how you should think about maybe not paying room and board and what that looks like. So I have my actual personal case studies are in there, which they're very easy to read. That's been a lot of the feedback. Majority of my reviews, I have no idea who these people are. And just everybody said it's really easy to read. Which I think was important. And I'm really happy about that because I want to make sure people understand this is really not that hard.
Great stuff. And the newer version of the book is going to be coming out later this year. So go and get the first version at the low price of $39.99. Because the next one is going to be $99.99. So, Lorraine, listen, thank you so much. It's always an absolute pleasure to have you on. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. I always learn so much when I talk to you. So thank you. See, this is how I learned. I can pick your brain for an hour and not have to pay you.
It's coming. Don't worry about it.
I know, right? I know that the voice is coming soon. But I want to thank you so much. And not only that, because I know, thank you for me, but also thank you for the people that will watch this, because I know that the value that you add to not just me, it's going to be so much more value that people will be able to get out of listening to the things that you shared in the context that you did. And that would also give them an opportunity to give them ways to connect with you so that you can help them get over the hump of the things that they may face as it relates to getting to the business of real estate investing. So again, thank you so much. Thank you for having such a giving heart. But we're not going to give everything away for free. Uh, but it's always an absolute pleasure to have a conversation with you. And folks, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for watching the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show, where we talk about real life real estate situations, but we bring you real life real estate solutions. Stop getting your information from HGTV. All right. And that's our show for today. Thank you all again for joining us, and stay tuned for next week.